Alright you guys, welcome back to the Alpha Mage TCG channel. This is our How to Play Alpha Mage Part 2. If you haven't seen the first part of the video, check it out. It goes over a little bit about our rules, how we play, a little bit about the field zones. So I'm going to bring out the same cards again. Again, these are not the actual cards. They should be coming here soon. I'll be ordering from the Game Crafter. We'll try to make it work. So last time we used 4 active spell slots in our active zone. Again, we have the 2 zones on the field, the active zone and then the reserve pile. So let's talk about a little bit about the actual cards themselves. Now, just a reminder at the beginning, when you're drawing cards out of the deck, you first start off with 5 cards in your hand. And then you got to make sure at the end of your turn you can't have more than 7. If you do have more than 7, you've got to discard in your cooldown. So if you have your cards like this, you have more than 7 in your hand, you're going to discard it in the cooldown. Now I want to make sure, I'm not exactly sure if I mentioned, sorry, I had looked it over, but just to recap, the very first 2 turns that you have. So the first player who goes, when they draw 5 cards, every turn you draw a card except for the first player who goes first, they do not draw a card. Just to make it evened out a little bit. And also it's good to remember, for the first 2 turns, you can't cast a card. You can't do combat damage, you can't combat your opponent. This way it gives you enough chance to build up your spell points to really start playing spells. So what that means is, if I go first, I draw my card. Again, bear with me, I'm doing the camera backwards, the way my camera is set up. But I draw 5 cards. Because I'm going first, I don't draw a card to start off. I place cards down. Let's say I just play card, I play 2 cards, because again, I have 2 actions. Then it's my opponent's turn. They play cards, they can't attack, or I'm sorry, they can't cast at me. They can't attack any of my spells. And then after their turn's up, it's my turn again. I have 2 actions. I can place 2 cards down, or I don't have to play up to 2 actions if I don't want to. But on my second turn, I cannot cast. All right, this allows me to build up enough spell points. Now, I wanted to clarify, I know someone asked, so I wanted to clear that up. The difference between playing and casting, playing a card means placing a spell or an artifact, and we'll actually talk about what the differences are. Playing those on the field. So if it's from my hand, put it down on the field, I'm playing the card. If for some reason I have an effect that can bring it back from my cooldown pile into the field, that's called playing a card. Now if I have a card right here, and I'm attacking, I guess in other TCGs you have monsters or whatever, or different spells, and you're attacking another, that's called casting, because again, each card, other than the artifacts, represents a spell. Whether it's a conjuration spell where you do have monsters, you're conjuring monsters, they're not the real thing in the lore-wise, they're just conjurations of those things. So you're casting at it, or basically attacking. So I'm attacking and I'm defending, but in Alpha Mage it's called you're casting, because you're casting a spell. Pretty simple. So that counts as an action for your turn. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about the collectivity of the cards. So let's see here. I have all, oh, this is out of order. I will place these here. All right, so here we go. On the cards, you will notice different colors. This is a brown border. This is a silver border. We've got a sapphire blue border. We've got a ruby red border. We've got an emerald border. Excuse me, we have a gold border, and we've got a white border. These talk about the different rarities, and what determines rarity is different effects that the card has, basically giving you extra bonuses for the card. Now, the brown bordered cards are our common cards. The silver are our uncommon cards. The sapphire are our special cards. The red ones, the ruby reds, are our rare cards. Our emerald ones are our super rares. The gold ones, which are usually, which are the Alpha Mage spells, these are our hyper rares. And then we have, in each set, we've got one white spell. This is our Omnipotent card. This is a card that has a really good effect. It costs the most, but it gives you a really good effect. There's only one in each set. These are our ultra rares. There's one ultra rare in each set usually. Now, if you noticed, out of the 100 in the initiation set, there's 100 cards. This is 101 out of 100. So what makes it an ultra rare. This is what really adds to the collectivity. So for a lot of you out there who really are into collecting, who like gameplay but are into collecting, we add these different features on the card just to really make sure that you're able to collect and that you have that added value in it if you're really into collecting cards as well. When they get on the Game Crafter, when they cut the borders, obviously like other TCGs, the better, more even the border is cut, it adds more value to your card. So again, here they are. Got our commons, uncommons, specials, rares, super rares, hyper rares, and our ultra rare. Now I know I mentioned Alpha Mage spell Omnipotent. We have in each of the different rarities, the rarities have no correlation with what I'm about to tell you. The rarities just gives it an effect. You basically have a certain spell. The better the spell is, it's going to have a better strength, a better defense. That's kind of normal stuff. Now, if there's any extra bonus that makes it a little bit better, that's what makes it up itself in rarity. So, in Alpha Mage, you have different kinds of spells. You have I'm going to go from the lowest to the highest. You got your novice spells. You know, again, think lore-wise, you know, you're a mage. You got your novice spells. You've got your apprentice level spells. You've got your adept level spells. You got your expert, your master level spells. And then, like I mentioned, usually the gold ones are what we call our Alpha Mage spells. Spells that are really powerful, that you where basically you're kind of at Alpha Mage status. Really cool cards. These do a lot of cool effects that can really help you or hurt an opponent when you're having these magical duels. And then the ultra rare, the usual one in a set, is called our Omnipotent. A very, very powerful card. Usually there's only going to be one in each set. So we're going to keep expanding on these cards. We're going to keep building and creating and designing more and more cards, but we're going to keep those rarities. So if you really like collecting, this is definitely the game for you, but also gameplay. Check that out in the first video. Now, I want to explain a few of the different types of cards that you'll see. All right. At the bottom left of each card is a little symbol. All right, you'll see quite a few different symbols. You'll see a symbol of a magic hat. You'll see a symbol of a kind of like an asterisk, kind of like an exploding looking symbol. That's called a burst spell. You've got a symbol that looks kind of like a cage, kind of like a jail. It's a trap card. You've got ones that look like a flask, like a potion bottle. Those are our alchemy spells. You have one that has a plus, that's a shield. Those are like our equipment. Those are our magical artifacts. And then we also have ones that are circular. Those are our ritual spells. And then we have one with a symbol of a hand. That is our companion spells. So I want to talk to you about what each of those are. Now, the one with the magical hat, those are basic standard magical spells. And that could be conjuration when you have beasts. Like, for example, we have this one here. Wind Serpent has a cool effect. Its rarity or the type of spell really doesn't matter. The level of spell that it is. This is a novice creature, but it's a special card because it has a very special effect that kind of gives it a little bit more of an advantage than a standard novice spell. Therefore, it's going to cost a little bit more. And again, at the end, we'll explain how to win through cost. Again, I just want to make sure it makes sense to everybody. So, just basically any standard kind of spell that you're usually casting will more than likely be your magic spells. All right, now the one with the asterisk, the one that looks like that explosion, those are your burst spells. And the way that works, because I know we mentioned in the last video, or it should have been mentioned, on your turn you have 2 actions. On your opponent's turn, they have 1 action. So if it's my turn, I have 2 actions. My opponent has 1 action he can play on my turn, which means he could play a trap. Probably in different TCGs, when you do something, your opponents will have different counter spells that they can play on your turn. It's the same concept, but they can only do 1 action. So they can't keep playing stuff to keep countering every single action you do. They only have 1. So a burst spell, it can work as a regular spell. If you place it down, it works as a normal spell, spell strength, spell defense, combat, everything else. Now, usually what the burst effect does is when you have it in your hand, for example, say this is my hand, it'll have the symbol of the burst spell, and it'll say, discard this card, and to do whatever, it has an effect. So in essence, burst spells will allow you only, you can do this on your turn, but you can also do it on your opponent's turn. You can discard a card when it's in your hand, not on the field, because once it's on the field, you can't use its burst effect anymore. So basically, you discard it from your hand, and then you can apply whatever its whatever effect. It doesn't give you spell points because you're using its burst ability, and once you do that, it goes into your cooldown, so it's obviously not on the field. Doesn't count towards your spell point total. All right. Now you have a trap card. Trap cards, their effects can be placed while on the field. This will probably sound familiar to other TCG games. So when it's on the field, then when it's your opponent's turn, you can choose to activate its trap ability. And when you do that, it goes into the cooldown. All right. So burst spells are discarded from your hand to activate an ability on your turn or your opponent's. Trap is the same thing, works on your turn or your opponent's, but its ability is activated when it's on the field. Even if it's in the reserve spot, you can still activate it from the reserve spot, but it'll go into your cooldown pile. So hopefully that made sense. All right, and then the next spell, type of spells we want to talk about are our alchemy spells. Now, these ones are pretty cool. I think you'll like a fun mechanic. So basically, alchemy spells will usually be a mixture between a type of flask and an ingredient. Now the way it works is, especially if you think lore-wise again, mages, they do a lot of alchemy, potions. If you like that kind of stuff, then we have something that'll be able to satisfy you in that sense. So the way it works is you can play an ingredient like a spell. It has an effect and everything. It gives you whatever bonus, or it does, whatever. Now, you can equip it, or you can kind of attach it together with a flask. When you do that, attaching an equipment with a flask will give you different effects. For example, it may double the effects when this is played. So for example, if you have a flask out and you combine it with an ingredient, usually when you drink a potion or whatever, the flask doesn't get destroyed, it's just what's inside of it. So it gets destroyed, this is still out. You have another ingredient, you can place it, you can attach it, and it works just like that. Very cool, so that way you can be, so if you want to be a mage instead of using spells, if you want to base yourself around alchemy, then you can definitely do that. You can be like a potions master, however you want to do it. So that adds a fun dynamic to the game. Some flasks that we'll end up coming out with might allow you, say, two. You can have two ingredients attached. The certain flask you're dealing with will explain all that, but it'll give you a variety of different kinds of effects and things that you're able to do. So those are our alchemy spells. Again, if you have any questions about any of these kind of spells, anything in particular, if we get enough questions, maybe I can do a Q&A. I could do a video where I answer some of your different questions. Now the next one I want to talk about are equipment. All right, so let's see if I can quickly find here an equipment for you. And you've probably seen it before. So for example, we've got this one right here. I know you've seen this card before. Equipment cards. As a mage, you have 5 pieces of equipment you can wear. You can wear a headpiece, a robe, foot gear, like boots or whatever. In this initiation set, we have something called heavy boots. You can have a necklace or any kind of hand item, for example, like a bracelet or a ring. In this set, we have a ring. So your 5 basic pieces. The way it works is when you have enough spell points to play it, you play it and it immediately goes into your reserve pile. It's not out on the field. It goes to your reserve pile. And that will give you whatever boosts or different bonuses or different effects that it explains on the card. So as a mage, again, lore-wise, you want to be able to gather, you want to be the most powerful. You want to gather all the different kinds of magical artifacts you have, different kinds of wands, necklaces, staves, things like that. Now, whenever you, if you get another, like say you have another necklace that you want that gives you a little better bonus or one that you need at the time, you can play it, but then the equipment that you have already, you can replace it, but it goes straight into your cooldown. So if I have another necklace and I play that in my reserve pile, this necklace, this neck piece, goes in my cooldown. All right, pretty simple the way artifact cards work. Other TCG games, they're equipments, but again, lore-wise, they're artifacts. All right, so there is your artifact. Now, ritual spells. Excited to talk about this one. So, ritual spells. Some of you like the idea of rituals. As mages, you can perform different rituals that can give you different effects. Now, these, in the initiation set, we have 2 different types of rituals. Each one has 4 cards. Some may have 2. They may not be as powerful, but we have 2 rituals that are 4. So let me show you what I mean by these. This one's called Nature's Ritual. The way ritual cards work is their effects are the same. You go ahead and read it. Everything's the same except for obviously the number in the set and which number it is. You can play any out of order. You don't have to place them. So this says Nature's Ritual 1, Nature's Ritual 2. You can play them all in different order. It doesn't matter. But it looks like a circle. You see that? Pretty cool, huh? So the way ritual spells work, as you play one down, it gives you an effect by having one of the ritual cards. If you have a second card down, it says it gives you another effect. It gives you another bonus. And if you're able to get all 4 out on the field, you have 4 different effects that kind of compile on each other. So for example, this one here, Nature's Ritual. Sorry, I'm doing this a little upside down, again, because of the camera. It says, Nature's Ritual gives you the following effects. So 1 card, player gets +2 spell points for every elemental spell they own. For 2 Nature Ritual cards out, you have all elemental spells player owns gets +2 spell defense. Pretty cool. If you have 3 cards of the ritual out, all elemental spells player owns gets +5 spell strength. So now you're really upping it. But this is contingent that you have 3 out. So you want to strategically be able to play really work in the active zone to really make sure you can get your cards in your reserve pile without these getting destroyed. If you have all 4 cards out, all elemental spell player owns gets an additional +3 spell defense. So if you have all 4 out, basically all elemental spells you own that are on the field will get +5, +5, +5 spell strength, +5 spell defense, and you'll also get an additional 2 spell points for every elemental spell out. Kind of a nice bonus. So this is what I mean by the ritual spells. So if you're that kind of a player, you know, you can also be a hybrid if you want to be like a potions ritual person. You want to be a little different than other mages. You could absolutely do that, and these are devastating when you get them all 4 out, but they kind of require all of them. And just as a side note as well, there are lore to these things. These aren't just completely made up. There is a lore behind these cards, the way the magic system works. There is a system behind it. So if you guys are interested, let me know in the comments below how you want it to be done, or how you want me to explain that. Now the other kind of spell as well. So let's see, we went over magic. You got your burst, your traps, you got your alchemy, you got your artifacts, you got your rituals. The last one is a companion spell. Let me see if I can get a companion spell. For the most part, there won't be many in a set. There might be 1, maybe 2, but again, it has that little hand symbol at the bottom left. What that does, same kind of idea as an artifact. Instead of placing in your active spell zone, if you have enough spell points. So this guy, I think he's my favorite mage. His name is Kindriv. He's got a whole backstory and history, what his personality is like. I really like him a lot. So he's got his own, I guess you can look at it like his, since he's not a spell, he's obviously a companion, but he's played just like a spell. So instead of saying this is spell strength, spell defense, this is his health, or this is his strength, this is his defense. But this guy goes, just like an artifact, it goes, when you have enough spell points to play it, it goes straight into your reserve pile. And what a companion does is they have different effects that they can do. For example, Kindriv says, Kindriv may play a 4/5 spell every turn. This counts as an action. So basically, if I have him out on the field, I don't have to have anything in my active spell zone. I can basically cast a 4/5. All right. And it's not something that it's permanent, because it doesn't say it's permanent. It's like him just casting a spell. So he does that for you, but that counts as an action. So it's not like you have 2 actions, then you got this bonus guy. He does an action. Now he has another effect. Says every 3 turns, you may randomly pick a card from your opponent's hand and look at it. This counts as 1 action, but every 3 turns. So depending on who your companion is, they'll have different effects you can do, maybe every turn or maybe every so often. But these are your companion spells, or your companions. You can have only 1 companion out on the field at a time, so just keep that in mind. Same thing like the artifact. If you want to trade him out, basically Kindriv, say goodbye to him, and then you have your next companion take his place. So as far as when you're building your deck, like we mentioned before, you need at least 36 cards. You can do more, it's definitely recommended, but to be playable, you need at least 36. You can have 3 copies of any spell, novice to master. You're just only up to 3 copies. Now you have your Alpha Mage spells. You can have as many Alpha Mage spells as you want, but you can have only 1 copy. So for example, Spatial Shift, I can only have 1 of these copies. I can have as many Alpha Mages as I want, but I can only have 1 Spatial Shift, so 1 of each kind of Alpha Mage spell. As far as your Omnipotent, you're only allowed 1 Omnipotent card in your entire deck. Not multiples, not several ones, but different, just only 1. That way it makes it a little more balanced. So as far as strategies, I want to talk about a few strategies towards the end of this video here. Because again, this is going a little bit long, but I feel like it's important so that way you guys can learn how to play it. As far as basic strategies you want to go, it's really, when I played with my buddy Travis, we had an interview with him. I'm having trouble with the video, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to post it. It was a post interview of the gameplay that you saw in our gameplay part 2 segment. A couple videos back, so I'll see if I can get that up. But basically, in your active zone, your active spell slots, whoever can control the active zone is the one who can easily push their cards through to the reserve pile to get them safe to build up your spell points. Now I know someone asked, a little bit more about spell points. So here it is, plain and simple. You have a card, let's say, all right? I'm just gonna grab one. This doesn't cost 0, but pretend this spell costs 0. All right, means I don't have any cards out on the field. I don't have any spell points built up. This is 0. So I'm gonna play a card down because I have one action, and I only need 0 to play it. So it means I can play it for free. This circle here, if you remember if you saw part 1 of how to play, this number here is how much energy or spell points this card gives you. So when I play it, it counts as energy. Now again, you can use this energy, turn it into its associated spell when you're casting and you're attacking. So now I have total 1 spell point. If I play another one, say for example like Spatial Shift, it gives me 29. So I place this down. Well, obviously I can't now, but say this cost 1, right? That would be a broken card, but for the sake of this example, say this costs 1. Okay, I can play it, but it gives me 29 spell points. So now total on the field, I have 30. That I have 30 points or spell points of energy that I can use to build up to be able to push stronger cards. You see how that works? And as they're destroyed, oh my goodness, it's now destroyed. That is no longer counted towards my score, so I do a little subtraction. Now, to avoid the fear of thinking you're going to have to do a lot of math, because I know in TCG games sometimes it seems overwhelming when you got to pull out a calculator on your phone. Really, it's kind of simple. In your reserve pile, it's nice piling them up in like tens or, okay, this pile counts as 20 points. Makes it a lot easier if you group them up that way. But also, for example, Spatial Shift requires 72 spell points of energy that I need out on the field, which means in my active zone or my reserve pile, to be able to play this. So instead of feeling like I have to count everything, all I need to do is see, okay, this is my group of 20, this is 20, this gives me 10, so 30, count up, and if you say, oh yeah, I already have 72 spell points, you don't have to count the rest, you already have enough. Once you're close to 200, that's when you probably want to take a pause and count up, okay, do I have 200, how close am I? If you're kind of far away from it, you don't have to worry about it. But once you're close, or you feel that you're close, go ahead and count them up. You need at least 200 to win. Once you do that, all the spells you have on the field, lore-wise, get cast on your opponent. You destroy them, and you win. Now, if your opponent concedes, like we talked about last time, or they give up, then obviously you win. Or if it keeps stalling out, you run out of cards in your deck, and nobody has 200 yet, you reshuffle your cooldown. It is now your spell book or your deck. Again, it's called your spell book. And then you keep playing, try to reach 200 or to make them give up. If a player gets to their second time where they run out of their deck, instead of reshuffling their cooldown into their spell book a second time, on that second time that they would do that, the game's over. Whoever has the most spell points wins. Those are the 3 ways you win. So what you'll notice as you play, I know these strategies may seem kind of theoretical or up in the air because you guys haven't experienced it yet, but as you play, you'll learn you want to control the active spell zone. Because what happens is, and you want to play your cards right, because if I have this card and it's going to give me a lot of points, give me a good effect, but I have a really tough card, I know if I place this down, this guy's going to destroy it. But luckily I know that through time, as this one gets pushed, as my opponent wants to get more spell points, this one will get pushed off into his reserve pile. Then I know I'm safe, I can play this. So control of the active spell zone goes back and forth. So the strategy is, how can I control this, or how can I maintain control the longest? How can I make that happen? Now, the nice thing with the 200 is when you're building your deck, a little piece of advice, aside from guidelines you have to abide by, like the 3 copy rules, only 1 type of Alpha Mage guard and only 1 Omnipotent in your deck, you have to have weak cards. We want it to avoid pay to win concept as much as we could. We didn't want you to be able to buy all the good cards that give you the best effects. I mean, you can always do that, but the trick is you have to have weak ones. You have to have what we call your pushers, your weak ones that can push out and bring out the bigger ones. So it balances itself out. So what happens, what we found when we've played, if someone's absolutely dominating and another player, and they're getting all their good cards out and they reached over 100, what happens is they end up having their weaker ones get brought out. So the second set of 100 that they're dealing with is kind of a slower process to get to 200. And with that said, then that means the second player ends up taking control because they're playing all their weak ones. The second player starts dominating, so he has a slow run for the first 100, but then the last 100 he's basically sprinting, as opposed to the first player who dominates. He's sprinting the first time, and then he's kind of burnt out, and then he's basically jogging or walking the next. So it basically balances itself out. So what we come down to is strategy. You want to be good at your deck. You want to be able to get the best cards possible, but you're not going to win just by having, I'm going to have one Omnipotent, I'm going to have 6 Alpha Mage cards, I'm going to have all the rares. You can't do that. You have to have weak ones. That's one of the unique things about the game, and why I'm really excited, because I want you to feel like when you get the booster packs, you get a box, every single card is useful. It has a purpose, you know. One thing I like to mention as well, one of the things that balances, say you have a really good card out, you can have 2 cards attack 1. Obviously that's 2 actions. Now you can't say, I'm going to attack 1, and if he doesn't do an effect, attack with another. No, if you're going to do that, you have to dictate at the beginning, I'm casting both of these at 1. You target it. So you may be able to destroy this, but more than likely your 2 are going to be destroyed. So it's kind of a pro and con. You have to weigh out the risks. So you can have one deck, but there's so many different types of games that you can play with it. It's never going to be the same. It's not like, oh, I know my deck, it usually works this way. It basically autopilots itself. I just can't be dumb about how I play it. No, every time will be different. If your opponent has control of this and he has a certain card out, okay, maybe I want to hold off on these, or maybe I do want to take the risk and attack, or use some from my reserve pile because I want control, because I have this card I really need to play for my ritual or whatever. So gameplay is completely different, but I like to feel like we got it down to a science where you finally get that strategy, where it's kind of like card chess. I've explained it before. So it's not just too complicated where it's just, I need a certain type of deck that will win most of the time. Every single deck that you can build, every type of magic, if you want to be a pyromancer, you want to be potions, you want to be a ritual, you want to be a summoning druid, a necromancer, whatever it is, it's balanced. One deck is not inherently better than another. And we have different, which I won't get into it, but we have different mechanics. We have different balancing sheets, so we can make sure, or that I can make sure that one is not inherently better than another. Yes, if you build a good deck, you'll probably win better because it's the strategy of building a good deck. You know, if you're having an army of guys, you have equal number of guys, it's just how will you train them? That's up to you. That's how you play Alpha Mage. Make sure you can control this part of the field to get them into your reserve, because that's going to be your safety zone for the most part. Have cards, have enough of your small cards, which means you won't have enough slots for big cards. If you do 36 in a deck, you can have 3 copies of really good cards, but that takes away slots to have the weaker ones, so it's going to be a lot harder to pull those ones out. If you have a lot of weak ones, and if you have way too many weak ones, you won't have enough big ones where you can actually stand a chance. So we hope you like it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Again, apologize for a longer video, but I think this is going to be a little longer than the last one, but that's how it is. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Please comment, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, share this with your buddies who you'd like to play this with. And also, I'm also curious, let me know in the comments below. I have a few different sets that we want to come out with once we launch the initiation set. I think I know what I'm going to do, but I'd like to know what kind of mage would you like to be? Are you more into elemental, elementalist type spells? You more like dark kind of magic? Let me know. I'm leaning towards the elemental, like an elementalist set. for the upcoming set. So that way, a lot of people I've noticed really like elemental stuff: fire, lightning, water, wind, metal, you know, the whole 9 yards. So thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time. It's pretty simple.